scene. Joe Klein, good to have you on board, Joe. First, John Hellman, though, you've got some new numbers coming out of Ohio.
Yeah, we got a brand new, just hot off the presses, Quinnipiac University CBS poll has Obama 50-45 among likely voters in Ohio. Now, that is obviously good news for the president, and yet, to go back to the subject we were talking about earlier today, which is momentum, that same poll on September 26th had the president up by 10. So he's down. He's lost 5 points of his lead, but he's still up 5. Good news that he's up 5 for President Obama. Bad news that he's down from 10.
And it is all momentum. Harold Ford, we talked about polls. It's also momentum. A poll like that means if I'm on either side, I just got a lot more nervous because, listen, you want to be up. You want to be up 5 points. I mean, and that's a huge lead. But if you drop 10-5. It means that you got to run out the clock.
And I'll tell you, he's still holding a 15-point lead with women in Ohio, which is a lot of those really important blue-collar women, the waitress moms, so much the focus of what Obama's doing in Ohio, still maintaining his gender lead there. And some really troubling numbers for Romney. Only 37% of Ohio voters say that Romney cares about their needs and problems.
Now here's another real problem. Alex is just telling me of people that have already voted. 54% voted for Barack Obama. 39% voted for Mitt Romney. The early votes, as we've been saying for some time,
what you're saying back there.
Very important. But this race is going to be so close.
And a sign of your point about the ground game, because that early voting,
it's all the ground game.
It's not just the turnout. The ground game is both about turnout, but it's also been about early voting. And the Obama campaign has a huge advantage there.
Joe Klein, this race is going to be so close. Again, a 5-point lead. Huge for Barack Obama. The trend line's not so great for him, though. Right. This all comes out. I mean, this is seeming more like 04. It's going to be turnout. But do they have the Ken Mellman, Coral Rove approach?
But there's one thing that's going to happen tonight that's really important for Ohio. And there's one foreign policy issue that matters there, and that is China.
Right.
The reason why Romney is talking more and more aggressively about China is because he's getting it from focus groups in Ohio. That is the one foreign policy.
Why is that? Why is China so important in Ohio?
Because in the middle of the country, in the Rust Belt and the old industrial areas, they think that we're losing jobs to them and that we're slipping behind them. Romney is taking a position that Bill Clinton and every last challenger has taken over the last 20 years, which is we got to get tougher with China. That's a stupid policy because you're going to have a trade war.
Well,
so the question is, what does the president do to counter Romney's aggressiveness
Wouldn't the
tonight?
counter be entry exports and the free trade deals that allows a lot of manufacturers now to get business and build their companies because they can export?
And there are studies that show that you pay more for your products here, that it really hits consumers if there is a trade war. The promise that Romney has made over and over again, that John Huntsman and a lot of mainstream Republicans say is dangerous and ridiculous, is that I am going to attack the currency of China on day one.
Right.
And I don't think, Harold, you know anybody on Wall Street or anyone in either party who thinks that that's a good idea.
But Andrea, this happens.
What is Barack Obama going to say?
This happens, though, all the time. Joe Klein, I remember 1992, you had Bill Clinton going after China aggressively, nonstop. He wins the election. He goes to the White House. He talks to George H.W. Bush, and they both come out and say, everything's fine. We love China. And this is a couple years after Tiananmen Square.
Do you know what Obama's actual real counter is? And that is the Chevy Cruze, which is assembled in Lordstown, and all of the parts. I mean, Sherrod Brown, the Democratic senator there, has been running ads calling it the Ohio car because everything down to the seat covers is made in Ohio. That's why people like the president there, because he saved the auto industry.
What's unemployment in Ohio?
It's 7%.
Well, and never forget, 33 out of 38 counties in Ohio with auto parts suppliers and them directly affected by the auto bailout. It's made a huge difference.
And China's also been a leading indicator, Harold, for some time. You remember 3, 4, 5 months back, you had John Kasich, the governor of Ohio, whose numbers have gone up a great deal over the past 6 months, bragging about how great Ohio's doing economically, and Mitt Romney going, Don't do that.
Don't say that.
Don't do that. I mean, Ohio was actually ahead of the rest of the country as far as turning things around. The right track, wrong track, moving closer to 50%. And we may be seeing that may still be a problem for Mitt Romney.
I hesitate to embrace John Heileman's points often, but I have to this morning.
You got to this morning.
I think the car manufacturing issue is so critical because that's why their job numbers come down.
Yes.
That has been the most complicated, confusing, and really contentious issue I would imagine inside the Romney campaign. Because how do you talk about job growth, improving economic opportunity in Ohio when you have the kind of prosperity they have, and you know it's largely because of what President Obama did. I will say this China thing is serious though in Ohio, and I contend one of the reasons that number is closing for Romney to make the ridiculous and irresponsible statement that he will declare China a currency manipulator day one on the job not only rattles people in business, it rattles business leaders around the globe, not just U.S. business leaders, but business leaders around the globe because of the impact, the ripple effect that will have across the global economy. China contracts, the world was impacted.
But
and for America to talk recklessly is problematic. However, it works politically.
Exactly.
It works politically in Ohio.
It does
tonight.
work on the ground. But the other real problem that Romney is going to have tonight is that his differences on most of these foreign policy issues with Obama are non-existent. Yes. And if you're doing the debate prep and you got one advisor who says, no, you're in about the same place, and you got another one on the far right, a neoconservative, saying, you got to be tougher, you got to be tougher. You listen to the far right ones, and that, as you said before, Joe, is the country is not there.
The country's not there.
Okay.
They haven't been there for years.
On this issue then, Joe, what does Romney do? I mean, it's a little bit...
On the auto bailout?
Auto bailout, China, the whole thing. How does he handle it?
I've been surprised they haven't handled the auto bailout better. If I were in Mitt Romney's place, I would have started saying a year ago, listen, here's the deal. Yeah, I oppose the bailout. I wanted to have the companies go into bankruptcy. He said this, but he hasn't dove in. And then we could let the market handle it. Then you could renegotiate the union contracts. Then they could come out the other side, and they would be stronger than ever. Instead, we got the federal government involved. They took your money. They reinvested in General Motors, which, by the way, the government doesn't want to sell back. He should have gone that way, but it's always been sort of this halfway measure. So Ohio voters haven't had.
There's one problem with that, Joe. There's one factual problem with that, and that is that they couldn't have emerged from bankruptcy without the government guarantees in the front end. They needed the guarantees to go into bankruptcy.
Joe's
there was
right.
no private investment at that stage that would go in without a government.
In the end, if Barack Obama wins this election by winning Ohio, the most important thing that may have ever happened was Mitt Romney writing that op-ed, which I'm sure he thought was so clever back in 2009 with the headline, chosen by him, Let Detroit Go Bankrupt.
He says he did not choose the headline.
Well, that's great.
I stand corrected on that. But
that headline was not his fault.
But a devastating thing. It hangs over him to this day.
If you've done that, I'm going to quote Bill Clinton here. Better to be strong and wrong. And he needed to embrace. Then weak and right. Weak and right.
Wow.
He needed to embrace this argument and go all the way in. He hasn't done that. He's in the sort of the killing fields, and he's still losing Ohio because of it.
All right.
In the first debate, remember, he said that his approach was similar to President Obama's approach, that he believed in bankruptcy, which was just hollow and wrong.
That's the wrong way to do it.
Joe Klein, thank you so much.
Joe, thank you.
Harold
Good to
Ford
be here.
Jr., thank you as well.
Absolutely.
Up next, we're going to bring in Obama Deputy Campaign Manager Stephanie Cutter on what the Obama team's strategy will be for tonight's debate. We'll be right back. Much more Morning Joe.